Everybody's got an opinion now. Who's fatigued? Who's got opinion fatigue? I do. Man, these tools are nice. They're nice and they're very, very helpful at solving problems. I just had to take apart a dryer and fix it because I was tired of replacing appliances. As many of you know, we've had multiple trees fall down, and we had one when we first moved down there fall on our power, tore out the whole service entry. Have you ever seen like the heavy conduit that like holds up a power line bend like 90 degrees? I had never seen that. That happened. And so this big maple fell in that power surge fried most of our appliances and stuff. So we replaced all that, and then the dryer went, a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, I am not buying another appliance right now. I'm going to fix this if it can be fixed. So thank the Lord for YouTube, because I had parts all over the kitchen, and the dryer drum was in the middle of the kitchen. The thing was just gutted. And I'm like trying to remember all right, this pile of screws came from this board. This pile of screws came from this, got it back together. It's running. Woohoo. So yes, I am not anti-technology. And that's just, like you've heard it's West Virginia. So you just learn to fix stuff because something's always happening. So I'm not anti-technology, but man, I am tired. I liked it better when I could assume the best out of people, and you met people and you didn't know everything they were thinking. We're all just kind of working it out. We're all imperfect. We knew how to be polite with each other, be helpful, be there for each other when you need. And then, disagreements happen at times, but it doesn't define you. The things that you're learning, the things that you disagree on isn't your identity, and you don't need to destroy or character assassinate anybody that disagrees with you. It was so much better when you didn't have to know what everybody was thinking all the time. I just don't even want to get on anymore. And again, now you get the grifters. Now, like the social media presence, people that are like, running with the algorithms and stuff like that, and they're saying all the controversial stuff to stir up division because it gets engagement, right? Outrage. Make somebody mad enough where they just have to comment on something, and then that, you know what you're doing? You're rewarding the people that are stirring up division. You're giving them a reason to continue to pit people against each other because that's what they want. They want people fighting in their comment section because it makes their engagement go up, and they laugh all the way to the bank. So, there's a way to offset this. It's just not be party to it. There is a rebellion. Everybody has a rebellious spirit, right? There's no shortage of rebellion in human nature. God is, he came and died for the rebels. That's us. And so that tendency just needs to be channeled in the right direction. We need to rebel against the enemy and the schemes of the enemy because we're no longer part of his kingdom. We're now soldiers of Christ. We're in his kingdom. We're in his army, so we have an opponent, we have an enemy, so we're to be rebellious against the things of the world, against the things of the enemy, but do it with love and to show the nature of God that has an element of fearlessness in it that the world doesn't have. It has an element of compassion that the world doesn't have. It has an element of truth in it that the world doesn't have. We have this opportunity to rebel in a way that the world, at the end of the day, for all the opinions, has no real explanation for because it outlasts all of the paper tiger stuff and the flash in the pan stuff. Here's this grit and here's this motivation. Here's the Spirit of God moving through people and giving them characteristics that are unlike not just other people, unlike who they were before they knew him. Does that make sense? That's part of our testimony. Somebody stands back and they say, man, there's something really different about you. Yeah, I'm not only different because of God, I'm different from who I was before him. Let me tell you about who I was before him. You think that I'm living in a way that you admire? You appreciate the truthfulness of my life? Let me tell you who I was before I knew Jesus. I was a liar. I was a thief. I was selfish. Thank you for thinking that I am gracious and selfless in some way. Let me tell you who I was before I knew him, because I was the definition of selfish. That stops people in their tracks, because we're always trying to kind of like, or a farm, or whatever it is the current term is that we're always doing to make ourselves look good. But the people that are like willing to be like, hey man, I have no interest in making myself look good. I want to make Jesus look good. People are like, what? What does the algorithm know what to do with that? Because everybody's about trying to make themselves look good. And it's funny, no matter what trends are there, what it keeps defaulting back to is folks that can land on something every once in a while that's refreshingly authentic. You find somebody that just feels like just an average person, maybe doing something a normal person, and it's just so nice to be able to like click on or engage with something that just feels like somebody's just doing their best. Isn't that kind of nice? Like this sort of self-effacing stuff for the people that are willing to kind of like, not the. But when somebody's just willing to give an honest narrative, and if they mess up, they're willing to get on there and be like, well, I tried that. That didn't work. Where's that? Where's that in church life? You know, where's that in leadership? Where's that in people following? Where's that in service? Where's that when there's a misunderstanding or something stupid is said and people's feelings are hurt, or we hit a wrong note, or I stammer over my words? You know, where is that sense of kind of like, man, we're just kind of all in this together. Let's encourage each other and ride this out together and see what God has in store, because, you know, he's always got something better right around the corner. So, in 1 Thessalonians 4 and 5, I know there's a lot of kids in here, so some of the stuff you're going to see me maybe paraphrase or skim over a little bit, just for the sake of family friendliness. You can read it. I mean, the scriptures are right there in your app. As you know, mom and dad, you can go home and read this stuff in a little bit more detail. Finally, dear brothers and sisters, we urge you in the name of the Lord Jesus to, you know what? Okay, let me just stop there for a second. If you think the Bible is boring and irrelevant, there's parts of the Bible you have to kind of like edit to read it to your kids. It's interesting. It challenges. It says stuff that's really, it's not tame and it's not timid. Yeah, have you ever read it? Read some of these stories. If they actually, I mean, when the Passion of the Christ came out, and you actually saw what you kind of gloss over with Jesus suffering and what that meant, you're like, oh yeah, he suffered. And then you see what actually happened put on screen, you're like, that's the Bible put on screen, and it's hard to watch. You can't tear your eyes away from it. At the same time, you're having to make yourself watch. I remember it's the only movie that made me involuntarily stand up out of my seat and want to stop something. I've seen some crazy stuff. I'm a veteran. I've seen Saving Private Ryan. I've seen a lot of stuff that just is gut-wrenching. Black Hawk Down was hard for me to watch. When they flipped that crossover with Jesus, and you like see he's headed towards the ground and he's nailed to it, I remember feeling a little bit like an idiot because I was up out of my seat just being like, oh, you just want to make it stop. And I heard that over and over from people that watched that movie. I stood in the movie theater, and I will never forget the feeling of standing in line to get into like the showing and the previous showing letting out. Because you don't know what to expect. You're standing there, and there's this long line like around the building to get into one of the theaters to show this portrayal of Jesus' life. And I'm standing like a few people back from the door, and the door's open, and people are coming out of there. No words. Nobody said anything. There were tears streaming down people's faces. Like, do we really know what's in here? If we knew what was in here and we took it to heart and we were like, you know what, God, I want my life to be. First, that's a scary prayer. Like, I want my life to be like this. I don't know where I'm going with all this stuff. I went to Summersville Lake with my kids to celebrate Joseph's birthday, and they had heard stories of me cliff jumping there when I was younger, and they'd always wanted to go. And so it was finally, we just have had very, very few like family excursions and vacations. So it was like, you know what, we drove a couple hours to the lake, and it's this big lake in West Virginia, and there's no natural lakes in West Virginia. It's just too hilly. Everything runs off too fast. So the Army Corps of Engineers dammed up this series of tributaries, and it's this big lake. It's beautiful. And in blasting, there was a lot of cliffs that were created, and some are lower and some are high. So we used to go there and jump. And so we took the kids there. We kayaked for a little while, and then we hiked up to like the edge of one of the cliffs. And everybody just kind of had the kind of like, oh, it was like it's pretty far down. And they had heard stories of me jumping off, and it was just kind of interesting to hear their reactions actually being there, because you hear the story, and you're like, oh wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. Or that sounds challenging, or whatever. And then you just hear the audible gasp when they kind of come to the edge and they're looking down, and they're just kind of like, oh. And they're like, I don't know. And Jonathan cracked me up, because Jonathan and Joy both were just kind of like, if I was threatened, I wouldn't jump off of that. Like if and I mean, there were signs up there that weren't there when I was there. They're like, don't jump off of this, people have died. Yeah, there are like 3 people that died jumping off of that specific spot, and like it listed multiple people, like 13, 17 people have been injured. And my friend that jumped with me one of the days that we were there, he got injured. I mean, he didn't report it or whatever, but he still has back trouble to this day. Sometimes from doing that, at least he tells me. 2 things with that. One, the story is one thing. Being there and living it is another. When we're like, okay, God, I want to know more of you. Or I want my life to be like Paul's. I want my life to be like, X, Y, or Z person in the scriptures. Like, I want to live scripture today like it was being lived in the book of Acts. And I think that's a good prayer to pray, but man, then you get to the edge, and you're like, the thing that God's called you to, he's like, all right. And there's that sense of kind of like, this feels different. And I have no doubt that my kids, even though they thought, standing there, they're like, I don't think I can do that. Now, I have zero doubt that they could work themselves into that sense of like, okay, I start here and then I work here. Not that I would want them to, but I'm just saying, to their credit, I've seen them that day work through fears where it was like, this is the highest thing I've ever jumped off of, and they did it, including Jonathan, and it was like, man, that was a lot of fun. And they were super excited because they pushed themselves to do something that they were like, my body does not want me to do this at all. Like the survival instinct kicks in or whatever, and it's just kind of, I'm like, yeah, but it's just one step. Just one step. That's all you got to do after that. You're no going back. You're not in control anymore. The second thing is, I made a mental note. The stuff that God calls us to do, like sacrificially sometimes, I have more anxiety, I think, coming up here to do this